Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to my favourite people and some of the world's biggest stars. And it's fair to say that the one musical you can't fail with is Jersey Boys. And the man who really brought this show to life and, in my opinion, made it the success it is today, Lloyd Young, is now in the West End at the Piccadilly. He's reopened the show in a brand new theatre and I'm delighted to talk to him. How are you?
I'm well, and I'm so happy to be in London. This is a dream of a lifetime.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because everybody in the West End dreams of getting to Broadway, and it seems to me all the Broadway people dream of doing proper theatre in the West End.
I think you're probably right. In America, we respect and admire the British tradition of theatre very much, and so it definitely is a very high honor to play a British stage.
Tell me what it's like being you, because what's interesting is that you've really been defined by this role as Frankie Valli, and it's a good role to be defined by because A, you have to act your socks off, B, you have to sing probably bigger and better than any other star in the West End or on the Broadway stage, and C, it's a bloody great show, isn't it?
I think it's a fantastic show. I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. It's a perfect cocktail of all the things that an actor and an audience love. You get to see a character start in humble circumstances and achieve his wildest dreams, then lose his ground and regain it. And so it's a wonderful character arc. It's great to play somebody who was already world renowned before I stepped into his shoes, but to sort of revitalize the legacy and bring it to a new audience as well was a real privilege.
I've interviewed many Frankies around the world on Broadway in West End and in Las Vegas as well, where it's currently playing and to sell out shows. And I always say to the people that play this role, you can't fake it. This is a show that has to be sung through entirely. There's two things that amazes you. One, you sit there and go, oh my God, I didn't realize they did that, that and that. And then you sit marveling at your falsetto. What is it? How do you describe your voice? Because it's very high, isn't it?
It is, and Frankie would tell you this also, that the best high falsetto singers are actually, technically as singers, baritones. I don't know what it is, but one of my voice teachers said it has something to do with the resonance of the voice. The lower that you can go, the higher you can reach in your falsetto. So if you have a falsetto, oftentimes you're a baritone.
And again, this show crescendos. It's not as if there's one 11 o'clock number. There's about 11 o'clock numbers. You really get to shine, and it must be amazing for you. I just think this is probably the greatest show to be in if you want to be a rock star, because you get hit after hit after hit to sing, don't you?
Well, yes, and in every single time that I step on the stage in this role, I become a rock star. The character becomes, and we see that process. So it's by the end of the show, he's the legendary Frankie Valli. At the beginning, he's just a guy nobody knows named Frankie Castelluccio.
That's right, and what I love about it is it's not nice, this show. This ain't Disney, this hasn't got giraffes in it. This is a real story of quite dark people that had to go through some quite dark things to get to where they became.
Well, it's that delectable sort of American mythology of the East Coast working class Italian American experience, right? The mafia sort of edged experience where you've got guys from the wrong side of the tracks with a dream, and through true grit, albeit East Coast style true grit, they achieve everything they dreamed of.
The relationship between Frankie and Bob, I think, is fascinating. It's a 50-50 deal of Frankie is the voice and Bob is the genius behind the music. And what I love is the sentiment that you're left with at the end is that it was all done on a handshake. There was never a contract written. It was all about trust and friendship. That's gone in showbiz now. You would never do that today. And even this musical, The Jersey Boys, was done on a handshake. There's no contract.
Yeah, well, they've had that relationship. It's a very special relationship, but I'll tell you, it does happen in showbiz today. I have that relationship with my manager, and we've done very well together. So, I guess it depends on the personalities involved, or maybe I was just influenced by Frankie and Bob.
Maybe you were, because when you meet these guys, there's something special about them. I don't know whether you feel it as well. The chemistry that they have is so rare, and in this cutthroat business of show business today, you can't really trust many people. They have undying trust, don't they? And that's what you sort of learn from this show, is if you have a bond and a connection, it's worth going with. And of course, that's what created the 4 seasons, and ultimately this musical, which I'm sure you feel has made your life, because you're so well renowned for it. And of course, the next chapter in this book is the movie, and you're involved in that as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Frankie and I never knew each other before this show opened, but now we'll be connected forever. and we've become very friendly over the years. That we actually spent time together on the movie set, watching in awe as Clint Eastwood directed this movie.
Why you? I mean, John, I look at your career, I look at your CV, I look at your face on the internet. I mean, why you? Do you sit there at night and think there's probably a million people around the world could do this role and they chose you?
I think that there are certain things in an actor's life that are tailor-made for them, and not every actor finds them, except I did. And I think that the Jersey Boys and I were lucky to find each other. And not everyone believes in fate or destiny, but I think in many ways I was born to play this part. That Frankie and I have a lot in similarities in terms of the kind of men we are physically, our voices, and I think that that when you consider the special cocktail of qualities that an actor has to have in order to portray a real person that we all know, short of stature, a high voice, able to tap that energy of the East Coast kind of energy, that Frankie and I are connected that way. And no, I don't think there are many people who could play the part. I'm glad, though, as you're alluding to, that I was the one who got chosen.
I first saw you, it is nearly 10 years ago now, believe it or not. It's extraordinary to think that, when this show opened on Broadway. And there you were on stage, captivating audiences night in and night out. And the first thing I could think of was, how do you do it on those 2 show days? This show is a workout, isn't it?
Well, the first year of the show was probably pure adrenaline, and I did do those 2 show days. But luckily for me and my own survival, when the show had become an established hit, then I didn't do the 2 show days anymore. And now, ever since, across the world, there's a Frankie who does 6 shows and one who does matinees. But that first year was the most work that I've ever done in my life, and I think the ingredient there was that we all wanted it to be a hit, and it was pure adrenaline getting through that really torturous vocal schedule.
I've been very lucky to interview most of the stars on Broadway and in the West End, and I always am amazed by their tenacity and their ability to remember everything. It's not just the words to the songs, it's not just the words of the script. You've got to bring it to life, you've got to remember where you've got to be. Literally, you could be killed on these stages. These sets are so complicated and brilliant. Your mind, you could start a conference with it. There's so much going on. How do you remember everything? I know it's an impossible question to answer.
Clearly, before one steps on a Broadway or West End stage, one has a month or more of rehearsal, and so you really know the show inside out. And I can't really think of many shows that change once they've opened. So once you've got yourself on top of what your stage activity is, then it's a question of really not remembering what you have to do so much as maintaining a freshness and a spontaneity each new performance. And I've found that for myself, and I can't speak for other actors, but I think that many would say the same, that what keeps a performance fresh when you go up to bat again and again doing the quote-unquote the same performance is that your audience is always new, and they have never heard the story. So that, for me, is what keeps it fresh for me.
What's magical about Jersey Boys is it's as fresh today as it was when it opened. It's such a contemporary story. It's a story that we can all associate with. There is a difference, I think, between Broadway and West End audiences. We can be a little bit more reserved, and especially with this show. It's a Jersey story on Broadway, which those Saturday night performances, of which I got to see 2 of them, were the most electric I think I've ever felt in theatre anywhere in the world. Would you agree there is something about this story being told in New York and it translating around the world?
I think in New York, I mean, New Jersey is right next door. This next state over from New York is New Jersey. So there's always in the audience and Broadway people who know exactly the milieu that we're functioning in. Whereas on the West End, it's an ocean away, and there's a bit of a learning curve at the beginning of Act 1 where people are getting a sense for their groundings, where they are in the world, and what this sort of society is that we're coming out of. But once the group in the story of the show hits with Sherry and their first big songs, then the West End audience is as electric or more than that Broadway audience who already knows the score, so to speak.
And again, as I said earlier, the great thing about this show is from the second it opens, you go, did they really write that one? Did they really do that one? And they did, hit after hit after hit. It must be a great thrill to bring these to life. They're mostly upbeat, and then occasionally we come across something like My Eyes Adored You, which I think is probably the most beautiful song in the show. It's magical for you. You get that pin focus, and you've got the audience literally in the palm of your hands.
I mean, it's a real gift for an actor to have songs that people already love so much as your sort of raw material, and the fact also that the 4 seasons, the 4 characters narrate to the audience, and that the audience is included. As, for example, let's say in the story of the show we're playing a stadium, well, the audience in the theater becomes the stadium audience, so the audience is also a character in our show. It's impossible for them to not get personally invested and go through that journey as though they're a part of it.
And then there's the movement. It's very specific. In the same way that Chicago has a look about it, the Jersey Boys has a look about it. Do you know what I mean? There's certain things you do with your hands that no other show does. How long did it take you to master the 4 seasons sort of dancing technique?
Well, that was really the brainchild of our choreographer, Sergio Trujillo, who did his research into the movement of the 60s and tailor-made some of those, very typical 60s movements to us, the original cast. It's a very sleek and kind of a cool look and masculine look that really has given Jersey Boys a signature feel. I think much in the same way that Fosse kind of influenced the look and feel of the musical Chicago, Sergio Trujillo's hand is on Jersey Boys.
Do you realise how special you are that you've made such an impact around the world? I mean, you're on that CD forever. You're the guy that everybody associates with this musical, and now you've got to do it in the West End. You're about to do the movie. What a life it is for you. Is there any way of summing up sort of you've made it?
I think that one becomes an actor because they want to exercise their creativity, but also one dreams when they become an actor of making an impact. Most I think are satisfied to make an impact by being in the original cast of a new play on the West End or Broadway, or becoming a part of theater history in some way. But to become attached to a show that has now become a worldwide phenomenon, that's about to be a film that we all hope will do very well, and to be associated with a role because people love it so much is exactly what you're alluding to. It's a dream come true. It's the privilege of a lifetime, and I will be always so honored to be well known and well loved for this standout role.
And of course, you've not just impacted the Great White Way, you've also impacted politics as well. You were appointed by President Barack Obama to the President's Committee on the Arts. Extraordinary. What was that like? Did you get to meet him?
I met the president at the White House at their holiday party at the end of last year after having been appointed. Have met Michelle Obama a few times, and working on this committee. The Obamas have a very strong history in community organizing, and every president's every administration's arts committee has the personality of administration, and this committee is dedicated to reinserting arts into the curriculum, and they have a project where they're inserting the arts into all subjects in the lowest performing schools. They have 8 schools they started with, and the results are unbelievable. They're just turned around in terms of discipline problems. The sense of community in the school is there where it wasn't before. In one case, the principal of the school fired all of the security officers and instead brought in arts educators, and everything in that school has turned around. So I'm really excited to be doing some very socially important work under the auspices of this really great administration.
What a fabulous year for you. And as you say, this movie, The Jersey Boys, comes out later this year. Working with Clint Eastwood, what was that like? No bigger legend in movies, really, is there?
No, and it's funny, he has a very stoic, I think, iconic personality across the world, and he's very similar on set. He's a man of few words, but the words that he does share with you have deep impact. So it was a really sort of almost out of body to be walking onto the Warner Brothers lot, not just for my first big studio movie, but starring in it, and to be directed by Clint Eastwood. It was, he's an actor himself, so any sort of insecurity I might have had or question I might have had, he understood immediately where that would come from in the actor, because he is one. So it was a really beautiful partnership between the two of us. He showed me an utmost respect that I he didn't have to, because I was new to his world, and he just seemed to feel joy at sharing this new circumstance of filmmaking with someone from Broadway.
And how rare to have a movie of this international magnitude to feature someone like you. Normally they go for some dopey celebrity who can't sing. This time they've really chosen talent over name. What a great honor for you.
It is an honor. If you look at Hollywood history, you'll see that some of the most well-loved performances in Hollywood musicals, however, were when they tapped the original Broadway star to recreate the role on screen. Rex Harrison comes to mind in My Fair Lady. Joel Grey comes to mind for Cabaret, and those both coincidentally happen to also be Warner Brothers movies. So Warner Brothers has done that in those cases, and I would hope that this movie succeeds in much the same way as those did years ago.
Well, they made a very wise choice. What first attracted me to this play and this show generally was the humour within it. Your comic timing is impeccable. It had to be, because Frankie and Bob and the boys were very, very funny and very New York and very quick-witted. You had to bring that to life. That's what's great about this show. It's funny.
It's a wild romp with very colourful characters, and what's so great about it is that this is the backstory of something we already love. And I think as an audience member myself or anything, I always love to see how something that I already love came to be. And that's what Jersey Boys is. It's something that we take for granted almost because we know this music so well for so many years. And to see how it came to life, and that these people who brought it to life were such colorful, interesting, funny, as you say, characters, is just, it creates an ecstasy in the audience, an ecstatic reaction that on our end as actors, the receiving end, is just so wonderful to experience every night.
And of course, guys, don't worry, there is the Jersey Girls as well within the Jersey Boys, isn't there?
Yeah, and they play three women play all of the women in our lives, and they're such fantastically talented actresses. You have to watch, and it seems like there are 20 actresses in the show, but that's a testament to the talent of these three women.
Listen, I can't say enough good things about the Jersey Boys. I'd never get bored of seeing it. I must have seen it probably 35 times, if not more. Around the world, it is consistently brilliant. It has to be, because you can't fake this role, especially yours. Frankie Valli is an impossible role to play. I still don't know how you manage to do it so brilliantly night after night, but you do. A real pleasure talking to John Lloyd Young. He's the big star of Jersey Boys. It's in the West End at the Piccadilly Theatre. It's new home. What a great thrill to move it to a brand new theatre, to be here for this big launch. And I know you had a gala night, which was a huge success as well. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and looking forward to seeing the listeners in our audience.
Great to talk to you, John. Thanks for coming on the program.